We're going to talk some to you today about the survey that many of you participated in and some results of that and some discussion around the topics that were on that survey. We have guests. We have Natoya. Natoya is the self-direction coordinator at the state level of DDA. She's going to be available to tell us some things and to answer some questions. Again, questions will come in the form of the chat box. And someone's monitoring that chat box to catch your questions and anything you might be saying so that we can make sure that those questions are asked and answered. And then we have our usual guests, Tracy Davis and Karen Bradbury from the ARC of Central Chesapeake, one of the 2 FMS agencies that you all use. And they're going to talk to us some about whatever updates they have, but also about Appendix K and kind of reviewing with all of us the benefits under Appendix K that might be available to you, to the participants. We're going to talk to you and update you on the RFP, and that was for the new fiscal management service and the electronic verification system. We're going to give you updates on that. And we want to spend some time towards the end of our meeting talking to you about what we feel might be a solution to some of the concerns, and it's certainly a part of the solution. And that's the bill that SDAN and several of the representatives in Annapolis are putting forth this year. And we'll give you a little bit of detail about that. So I'm going to turn things over to Alicia. We really are glad you're here, and we know how hard some of you are having, how difficult it is for all of us, but how difficult it is for some of the participants. So we're really glad you're here, and we care about each and every one of you and your family members. So Alicia.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for attending. You make our hearts feel good that that you care and that you came this morning. And even more so, I want to thank you for your participation in the survey that we sent out and that the FMS has sent out to those people who aren't necessarily members of SDAN. So just to give you an overview, there is about 1,200 people in self-direction. SDAN membership, as defined by our email group, is about 550. And of that group, over 140 of you answered the survey. It's still open, so if you haven't had an opportunity to answer the questions in the survey, please do. We are trying to really dig deep and to find out what's going on with our membership, and to be able to communicate to DDA as well as understand better ourselves what your issues and places that things are going well and places that you're having difficulties, so that we can work together to improve it. So thank you again for filling out this survey. I'm going to pass it on to Ginger and Carol. They're going to kind of weave in the survey results that we have to date with the agenda items, and Natoya and potentially Donna Hitch is here too, a regional, I'm not sure title, but she's in one of the regions, and they will be able to answer some of the questions that came up in the survey. So Carol and Ginger.
Okay, so the first thing we did, we wanted to look at getting plan approval and related, 2 other related questions to getting our plans going. And so question 1 was asking who had issues getting their plan approved. And 60% of the people who responded said that they were having trouble with some aspect of getting their plans approved. The second question sort of was related to that, whether or not people were able to access the COLA, the cost of living adjustment for fiscal year 2021. And basically only 18 out of 140 people who responded were able to access the COLA as part of their new plan. Then the next thing was whether or not they used the cost detail tool when they were doing either their original plan or plan modifications, and seeing if there were any issues with that. So all of these things were related to getting plans originally approved. So in addition, so only 6% use the cost detail tool. So most people are not yet using that. The comments that came with each of the questions were also full of really interesting information. And so here's kind of a summary of the gist of the comments that came through with all of these. So a lot of people were really concerned about the delays of approval. Either their plans hadn't been approved yet, and in some cases we were talking about months or years delayed, where people don't have access to their services. And then also the changes in the process. So DDA has been doing a lot of different things. And so kind of as we're trying to get our plans approved, the rules kind of shift from underneath us, and that it was confusing and it caused delays because what was okay before is not okay now, and so on. There were several comments related to the fact that CCSs didn't know some things, that they weren't appropriately trained to get people's plans through the system. And it's not that they were not good people, they just didn't have the information that they needed. So there was a lack of training. Many people didn't even know that there was a cost of living adjustment available to them. And so they didn't know if they had a COLA involved with their plan approval. Some people were able to successfully use the cost detail tool, but the people who had done it found the process to be extremely cumbersome. It was difficult, it was confusing to get through that cost detail tool. And the people who were not able to access the COLA were talking about that was something that is really important to them. And so they really wanted to make sure that, they were able to access that to improve the wages of their direct support personnel. And in many cases, it was just, well, what do we need to do? How do we access it? They just have no idea how to do that. So, Carol, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you did a great job.
Okay, thanks. All right, then let's go on to the next question group. Okay.
Got it? Yeah, sorry.
Yep, there we go. Okay. So again, talking about some of the things that are sort of changing. A number of people had questions about personal supports and EVV. So when are we going to be mandated to use that electronic visit verification? And then also the HRST and SIS. So let's start with some definitions first, because they're like with many things with self-direction, there are a ton of acronyms being thrown around. So EVV means electronic visit verification. And basically that means that when your direct support personnel arrives, they call just to log in, and then when they're ready to leave, they call to log out, and it's a process to make that happen. Basically, that whole mandate has been delayed because it was tied to the FMS provider. So the RFP is directly involved in this EVV. So we're going to leave that for the later discussion, because we're going to discuss that in detail later on. Eventually, that will apply to self-directed participants, but at the moment, it's not immediate. It's tied to the RFP. There was a lot of concern and uncertainty around personal supports and pushing people into supported living. And you can have other services at the same time as supported living, but it's difficult to find an agency to come close to the staff. Oops.
Sorry. I should
hello.
Just so you know, I shouldn't be the host, but I am.
That's you're good. You're good. And that's a major issue for a lot of people. Now, one of the things that we're going to be talking about a little bit later is about personal stories, so that we can go with specifics when we're talking about, hey, we have these problems and we're going to talk to the people at DDA. It's really helpful to have very specific stories. You know, this person did this, it took this long, you know, they were told no this many times, you know, whatever the specifics are for your story. And we will talk about that later on in the meeting. Okay, another couple of definitions. HRST is the health risk screening tool, and the SIS is the supports intensity scale. And both of these are scaling tools that will identify the level of needs in various different aspects of your participant's life. And it's something that is administered by generally a nurse. They come into your home and they ask you a bazillion questions, and between the two tools there are different questions and it's different lengths, and they're normed differently, and all of that. And so I'm not going to go into the—
Can I ask you, what was that tool called? What are you talking about right now?
So there are two different tools that have been used. I believe the intent to move towards the SIS, but the first one is called the health risk screening tool.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and SIS is the sports intensity scale. Okay.
Can I make a comment about the sports intensity scale?
Okay, just briefly, yes.
We had that call, or I had that call, which was 2 hours long. And there was a lot of questions that did not pertain to my daughter, but they had to be answered, you know, not applicable, not applicable. And it sort of made you feel bad. But there was also a lot of things missing, like quality of life questions. And so I had sent a message afterwards to the person who did the interview, just stating my concerns as to this loss of capture of information that wasn't included. But they just said, well, we'll forward that, but I never heard anything more about it. So it'll be interesting to see how this gets developed.
We've had concerns about the CIS for as long as it's come out. So those are the kinds of things we need you to share with us so we can speak to it more directly. And the DDA people that are on the call are hearing that today, which is good. A lot of people who are capable of doing the test without support or the scale without supports feel that it's very invasive of their personal life. So there's a lot of issues, and we're going to do a survey in the next, let's say, week or two to kind of tease out some of the issues that we saw in the comments. So hopefully people will answer it in more detail so we can kind of hone in on what the issues are and what the concerns are. But yeah, that's a common thing. It doesn't apply. It's very depressing to families to go through that when their children when they have to answer questions about the intimacy level that their children can obtain, when they know that is not likely to ever be a part of their lives. So anyway, we hear you. We know. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and invasiveness was one of the comments that came through again and again, was exactly what Carol was just talking about. I think so. Another set of concerns that came through in the comments were not understanding exactly how those scores were used by the state and as it relates to the budget, and that the SIS will be done every 5 years. So not only are we having to do it once and it's terrible, we actually are going to have to repeat it for a long, for everybody's lifetime. So, okay. Any other comments, Carol?
I can't. I'm not sure I'm monitoring the chat very well, because I can't. I can barely do one thing at a time, let alone.
I've got the chat, Carol, and
Okay.
I think we can go on.
Okay, let's go to the next slide.
All right.
Okay. And then status of the staffing and COVID-19 concerns. And of course, that's looming huge in everybody's life. So 39% of respondents currently do not have staff from outside the home working with their participant. About 31% have staff coming into the home from other places. So, you know, it's a third and a third. There are a number of questions regarding staffing that people are concerned about. So first of all, can a rep payee be paid as staff? Can a parent be paid for more than 40 hours a week but not have overtime? Will staff be eligible to be vaccinated in the priority group? How many or how are we able to implement remote sessions? So for some of our participants who are able to interact well online through Zooms and things like that, how do we make that happen? There were some suggestions also to allow for a temporary increase in staff pay to encourage them to stay with a single family instead of jumping around to multiple places, because of course that spreads. If anybody gets sick, then everybody gets sick. And we would also like to have some kind of a staff availability list to see who is available, and also to be able to share staff. So that individual families can work together to combine their hours to give staff people, you know, close to a full-time job, that sort of thing. Okay, so I think that was it for the overview of the survey results. Carol, do you have anything to add?
No, if there's anything that you want to share with us, type it into the box or send us an email. That'll be more permanent. Because again, the host can't do anything more at this moment. Yeah, I think
Carol, Rita Schneider has a question about does SDAN have a list of questions that are asked in SIS?
I think that there is one online, and that we may have a copy of it from online. So again, send that to us. Send that question to us. I'm not sure if we can publish it.
I think we really need to have everybody use the chat box, because if everybody interrupts and asks their own very good questions, we won't be able to keep the meeting moving forward. So please, your questions are most welcome. If you put them in the chat box, I'm going to try to monitor them and ask the appropriate person when it comes up. So please, we want to know, but if everybody gets a chance, we've got something like 70, 80 people on. So thanks, guys.
Okay, so yeah, so we're maybe sending additional survey outs. So next, well, we're not, that's it. We're done with our survey. Let me go back to the agenda so we know where we're going now. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and let Natoya Mitchell talk to us about further details on the plans, budget, COLA, all of that. Please put your questions in the chat box, like you said, and we'll monitor. I don't have this set up that I can mute everybody, so please don't unmute yourself. You can raise your hand and maybe we can try to see you, but there's a lot of people, again, not sure if we're doing this right.
Well, good morning again, everyone, and thanks again to the SDAN members for having DDA on to be able to join you. It is quite a pleasure. Just wanted to share some updates regarding the budgets, the plan, the cost detail tool, as well as the COLA. We are aware that there has been some challenges along the way with getting budgets and plans approved, as well as information relating to the cost of living adjustment. So just want to kind of just share some updates with everyone here, but then also to welcome all of you to reach out to me via email as well as via cell phone. And I shared that information in the chat boxes too. So my email address is natoya.mitchell@maryland.gov if you don't already have it. And again, my work cell phone number is 443-235-5802. So again, that's 443-235-5802. Some of you have had a pleasure of speaking with. You are welcome to send me a text if you need to, if you prefer. You can also send me an email. As mentioned before, there has been some challenges with just trying to get budgets and plans approved within each of the respective regions. And sometimes when this occurs, there are family members who do reach out to me, and then I coordinate with the regional staff just to find out exactly what the status of each plans are. So that approach has been helping a great deal. Again, there is no specific reason as to why, there might be some delays. There are a lot of different requests that come into, each of the regions. So if I can just speak a little bit more about the cost of living adjustment. So in previous years, DDA would inform participants that there was a cost of living adjustment and what that dollar amount was. And then they will have the opportunity to be able to request the usage of that money by way of informing the FMS. And so one thing that DDA did differently this year is that they implemented this new model of the cost detail. So the cost detail was supposed to not only just consider the cost of living adjustment, but also consider some increases in rates for respective services. And so we have asked for individuals to access or complete with their CCS the cost detail. There has been challenges with the cost detail. And so right now there is a updated version of the cost detail, which was effective December 1. There was also a November edition of the cost detail. So the cost detail is only temporary. We are expecting for the cost detail to not be in use as of January 1. DDA will be utilizing the detailed service authorization tool. So if you happen to be working with your CCS to complete the cost detail, and if you notice that there is a decrease in services, you can reach out to myself as well as any one of their regional leads, and we will work with the team to just find out exactly what those specific issues are. Because one thing that's extremely important is that we don't want anyone to be without services or supports. There have been some instances in which with the completion of the cost detail, there has been an increase. But again, that's based upon the assessed need for each individual person. And so just keep in mind, it's only temporary, and it's supposed to, be, the detailed service authorization tool is supposed to take place of that as of January 1. So I'll just pause now, and I'm gonna check the chat to see what some of the questions are, and I will respond to some of the questions here, because I know it's being recorded, and then this also gives us an
Latoya, one of the questions is about, will the COLA amount show up on the FMS statement when it's available, or is it applied during the year? So maybe you could talk a little bit more about the COLA again, and how people can get it, what channels they need to go through at this point.
Sure.
And somebody else is asking what the cost, why is it being eliminated, the cost tool, and to talk about its replacement with and where they can find that.
Okay. All right. So I'll just start a little bit about with the cost of living adjustment. And so if you want to access the funds, just keep in mind, it's not only just going to be the cost of living adjustment, it's going to be potentially an increase to some other services that you may be receiving as well. And so it won't just be, the 4%, it's probably going to be substantially higher, in most regards. And so the way in which to do that is to, consult with your CCS so that you can complete the cost detail tool. The cost detail tool, as well as your plan, is updated by your CCS, and that information is transmitted over via LTSS. That's the system that DDA utilizes with its CCS. And then the regional office will then review that information, and then they'll approve it, or they might send a clarification request to the CCS. And so when your CCS is working with you for the cost detail tool, it's going to provide an overall dollar amount that will be your budget. And so based upon that budget, the CCS will then use the self-directed budget worksheet to be able to itemize the specific expenses for you. But again, if you happen to notice that there is a decrease of any amount, even if it's $1 or 50 cents or what have you, let us know, because we want to see exactly what some of those challenges are, so we can make sure that we provide some advice as well as some guidance so that you won't have those issues.
Natoya, somebody's asking a question. They're working on their plan currently and now is worried that they've been using the cost tool and that's going away. Do they have to redo the detailed service authorization? Should they put it in before then? What advice would you give that person?
Absolutely. So anyone who is in process right now for completing their cost detail to the regional offices are aware that there are many people who are in process. And so no, they won't, go back in January 1 and ask that you go back and complete a detailed service authorization. As of right now, if you are in queue, just continue along with the process of, being in queue with getting your cost detail approved. And again, if you need any additional assistance or guidance, or just, help to find out exactly where, you are within the process, you're more than welcome to reach out to myself as well as any one of the regional leads, because we are keeping track of, what some of these different issues that are coming up, because we have known that there are some issues with the cost detail.
Okay. Yeah, so I think there's some questions about whether or not COLA is available. COLA is available, so it is worth going to your CCS to look at one of the two tools at this point. We're hoping maybe we can get DDA to simplify the process for some, but anybody who's working on their plan now and in the future will need to use the detailed service authorization as part of your regular annual plan to access the COLA. Is that correct, Natoya?
That's correct.
And if you have your plan approved already, there may be, we're hoping there'll be a simpler methodology for getting the COLA, but as of now, cost tool, or as of January 1, the detailed service authorization is the way you can request the COLA. You do not have to request more than that, but you may when you fill out that form. So, but definitely 4% COLA is out there, but you will have to do some work for it. So somebody's asking where they can find the detailed service authorization tool.
I'm not sure if it's published yet. It may be, and if it's not, then I will share it in the link. I'll do a quick search and share it in the link if it is.
It had been part of the PCP, so the CCS is probably would be able to get a participant a copy of it. I believe they have to fill it out as part of the annual plan, or that's how it was in May.
Yeah, there may be some changes. I just want to make sure I provide at least the most, current.
Great. That would be awesome.
Info.
Okay, I think if we're done with that question, we can move on to the COVID-19 issues, Appendix K with Tracy and Karen and Natoya. You probably have some input regarding what regional offices supports may or may not be available. So Tracy, you had wanted to share a PowerPoint, correct?
Sorry, I just wanted to unmute myself. Sure, we have a PowerPoint to share. Is that something that I'm allowed to do?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to make you a co-host. I just have to find you in the list.
You can just hit share screen.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Oh, she can?
It says host disabled, prevent screen sharing. I think it's okay. Actually, if I can just go ahead and talk, we'll make sure we get the information in the chat box if that would work.
It's easy to make you a co-host, so let's just do that.
Okay, you should be a co-host now. Of course, your name has to start with a T, so you're like way down. It's not by last name, it's by first name.
It's still telling me I can't share. Host
Because
disabled.
you made it different, Tracy, the co-host.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay, wrong, Tracy. Sorry. I don't even.
There. I did throw into the chat box a link to our website for the resources that I'll be discussing. And it's still not letting me share.
No, it says Tracy Davis. Oh, it says guest. Okay, hold on. Maybe we have too many co-hosts. Yes. Are you co-host now?
Yes. Okay. Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay.
I did send to everybody that registered the packet of papers that you sent me the other day, Tracy, on the COVID-19 Appendix K instructions. So if everybody should have gotten that if you'd registered before the meeting started, or at least a half an hour before the meeting started.
Yeah, I saw that you shared our processing guidance, which is great. And thank you for having us. It's good to see everyone's faces and appreciate SDAN inviting us to the call. Natoya, I'm really glad you're on the call too, because really Appendix K is a DDA measure. And, you know, our support to that measure has been creating tools and resources to talk about the processing of those things if they choose the ARC as their FMS provider. So this pertains specifically to those people who use the ARC as their FMS, but I'm sure Natoya can address Appendix K in a more global sense. But just as a good tip, since Appendix K is a terrific resource, and we want everyone to make sure that they have what they need to use it, please visit our website, and there is a section entitled Appendix K COVID-19 Forms and Resources. Literally everything you need is right there. The processing guidance that SDAN shared as a resource has hyperlinks to the forms and the guidance that's on DDA's website. DDA has a great Appendix K interface on their website, but it's a global Appendix K. It's not specific to self-direction. So hopefully our processing guidance kind of narrows it down a little bit to pertains to folks who self-direct. We've got clear service codes that are specific to Appendix K, and specifically Appendix K timesheets and vendor payment request forms. So be sure you're using all the right forms, but all of the resources and documents are right there for you to access. But that Appendix K guidance really leads you through the process of submitting DDA's COVID Form 5 to access the funds for the $2,000. So it's all right there for you. I did also put on this slide DDA's toolkit info email that is going hand in hand with all the Appendix K information, and then a link also to our ticket system should you have any questions and need to speak to us a little bit more about you know, and get some more processing guidance that might not be clarified in any tools and resources that we shared. So at a high level, please know that we're here to do anything we can to help, and all of those documents are right on our website for you to access. But any specific questions, please don't hesitate to direct them to us. I know that Karen wanted to share some reminders because she sees these requests come in. I want her to be able to speak specifically to that process. So Karen, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Hey everyone, it's good to see most of your faces. So just a heads up, so the Appendix K goes through March 12th, 2021. I know that seems a ways off, but it's only 3 months away. So we just want to make sure everybody's getting, you know, any Form 5s in, so that way we can allocate that extra $2,000 in COVID funding. You all have any questions about how that funding can be allocated? It's definitely in the Appendix K guidance. You guys can also use the top part of Section 1 to reallocate any existing funding to either current or new services as they relate to COVID. So just make sure that we're getting those Form 5s in a timely fashion, because we want you guys to be able to utilize that funding before the March 12th deadline. And then as far as the 360 hours of respite services, you guys would utilize the Appendix K timesheet along with the appropriate service coding to make sure that you guys can utilize those extra 360 hours. So if anybody has any questions.
I think there are a couple of questions. Somebody wanted to know whether DDA was going to extend the deadline to use those funds that expire March 21.
Yeah, that'd be on DDA.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just in case Natoya wanted to take that.
Yeah, sure. As of right now, it's still standing for the March 12th, 2021. But if there are any additional changes, we will, make sure that all of our stakeholders are aware.
And somebody else is asking if you need to change your PCP to get those 360 respite hours.
Nope. So everybody in self-direction has access to those extra 360 hours. You don't need to change, what service code somebody is approved to work for or anything like that. Just go ahead and submit the APK timesheet and we'll get that processed.
And how about the $2,000? That was the, what form, is it a form that you need to fill out to get that? And what can the $2,000 be used
for the extra $2,000, the team would need to submit DDA's COVID Form 5 to us for processing, or the other FMS entity, depending on who you guys are with. And that extra $2,000 would be allocated via Section 2 of that Form 5. And that can be utilized for either extra support hours, extra support broker hours, personal protective equipment, reimbursement, or staff recruitment.
Okay. If somebody wanted to, so because of the COVID situation, people are doing things like the Zoom meetings. How would a participant get some technology equipment that they might not have as part of, that now is necessary to be able to stay in touch with your community?
So that would have to be done via Section 1 of Form 5, utilizing existing funds that are already in the budget. So submit that into us, and then a cost detail sheet would need to be submitted to DDA as well. Anything else, Alicia?
Look, I'm just reviewing really quickly. I think you've covered it. Most people were very interested in the respite hours.
I think it's a highly underutilized resource. So yeah, you don't have to submit anything. Just submit a timesheet with those respite hours for sure.
The biggest problem is those people who have family as staff or don't have outside staff. Is there a way to get respite hours if you aren't? How would you get respite hours if family is doing the majority of the staff work given COVID situations?
Based on the DDA guidance around that, there's really no specific parameters. So we can only go based on DDA guidance. Natoya, feel free to chime in, but the stance that we've taken is that any cleared employees can access respite. So any currently cleared employees or employees that you clear since the beginning of Appendix K can access the respite, because we don't know what your situation looks like. Maybe you can't let anyone in the house besides, the parents or family members. So any cleared employees can submit for respite via the Appendix K timesheet.
Okay. Somebody asked, Karen, you said that $2,000 for personal support hours could be used. Do they need to be related specifically to COVID?
No. So that would, that $2,000 is there to cover, any extra personal support hours, just as, something that through Appendix K. So just make sure that you guys submit the COVID Form 5 and ensure that employer taxes are included in that section too.
Okay. And then somebody else was talking about somebody who needed skilled nursing care. Is there any way to access the respite hours given that?
So that might be a little bit more in-depth if they want to reach out and ask, just because I'm not sure if they have direct hire staff that's already cleared through us. Because, basically anybody that's a cleared employee through us can go ahead and submit that time.
Okay. And
a couple more questions. Alicia, let me ask the question. Talk a little bit about the process of clearing employees now. It was made a little bit easier, right? So if you have someone that's not already cleared, what do they have to do to get someone on board?
So I would really refer people to our processing guidance. There's a robust amount of information in that processing guidance, and it really addresses all of the topics that are coming up on today's call. We really take DDA's processing guidance at large and narrow it down to focus on what pertains to folks in self-direction. So I can't encourage it enough. Look at that processing guidance and it gives you all the information you need.
Okay, let me, in that vein, let me ask one more question that came in from the survey. Is there any way to give a temporary increase in salary which to incentivize the staff to stay? Natoya, I mean, would that still require plan mod, or is that something that could happen with the $2,000 by appendix
Now,
K
is
Form 5?
the question for them to get additional staff, or
Temporarily increase the staff pay during COVID?
we will have to look into that one specifically. I would urge that person to just reach out to me directly so that I can talk a little bit further about, and then also bring in the regional team to look at the person's plan.
And then the other question that was on our survey, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna let you all answer it. Can family members work more than 40 hours a week but not do overtime, get paid overtime? I mean, so they work more than 40 hours, but will anything over and above 40 have to be paid at time and a half?
No, there is actually the timesheets that are available under that Appendix K section gives the family members a chance to opt out of being paid overtime.
But they can still be paid. I read it as they were opting out of being paid for more than 40 hours, but it's just opting out of overtime?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yep. I didn't know the answer. All right, sorry, Alicia.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Somebody wanted an extra verification that parents can be paid respite hours.
Because the DDA guidance does not specify, we can't hold people to a tighter guidance than what DDA indicates. So we have opted that anybody that's cleared can submit for respite. But
Okay.
it has to be on the Appendix K timesheet. To be clear, this has to be connected to Appendix K, has to be submitted on an Appendix K timesheet so that it can be, appropriately recorded.
Okay. So somebody asked, is there hazard pay available for staff if someone in the home is COVID positive, or does it just apply if the individual is COVID positive? So in other words, if somebody, Natoya, I guess that's a you question. Hazard pay for staff coming in when the actual participant doesn't have COVID, but somebody living in that household does.
That's no.
Okay. But so instead of hazard pay, is there a way to pay them more temporarily while they are facing an increased risk?
And so that will probably also to be based upon that person's overall budget. And if they have enough, funding currently that they might want to have an increase in pay, but it's not, classified as being, hazard pay. It's just an opportunity for them to pay their staff additional.
One option is to use the respite hours though, and you can set the rate of those respite hours different from any other rate in the plan, correct, Tracy? Because we just went through that together. There's no cap on the respite rate, I guess, other than reasonable and customary. I'm not even sure that DDA publishes. So a way to not use the hazard pay because of that glitch that someone else besides the participant has it would be to use respite hour, some of the 360 respite hours instead.
I think that's a way to navigate it. Yeah, access that 360 and set the rate within reasonable and customary. We're held as an FMS payer entity. We're held accountable to the rate indicated in the plan and budget as a max rate for that specific service. If that specific service doesn't exist, like respite, we don't know what to hold you to, as a cap for that rate. So we have to follow reasonable and customary.
I have
to clarify, I'm sorry, could you put your questions in the chat box, please, Melissa? So we can just keep it going.
Oh, she has hard time typing. It might be easier to speak it.
Okay, my mistake. All right, go ahead, Melissa. Sorry.
Oh, the raise your hand option isn't on Zoom, so I ask, is SDAN like why the FMS has the authority to decline services to someone who DDA has already approved? It's for the FMS provider, and our delegates, how many delegates and senators are able to acknowledge and express our concerns? Thank you.
Melissa, this is Tracy with the ARC. The one thing I would say is that as an FMS entity, we're only able to provide payment for services as outlined in the participants plan and budget. Anything outside of the participants plan and budget, we don't have the authority to provide payment for. We're frankly, we're not authorized to, and then we would have to provide a payback if we did pay for any services not authorized in the plan and budget. But that does change slightly with Appendix K, so that creates another authorization, sometimes globally or specific to the $2,000 as it's allocated by the team. Hopefully that helps.
One other question from the survey, and maybe Natoya, you can address this, is having staff work remotely. That's allowed, right? They can be paid as normal if they're working with the participant remotely rather than coming into the house.
Well, I've seen some particular matters in which staff have worked remotely, and they were doing it through the like different types of like video chats, whether if it's a FaceTime or Zoom, where they're instructing the person on how to do certain things with them.
So I've got personally a lot of clients who have used that, so I would encourage people to do that if it's possible. A lot of things are hands-on, so it's not, but at least to maintain the connection between the participant and their staff and over the months and months of this has gone on. So yeah, I would try to do that. And if you need help with a computer or something, then we need to work through the Appendix K process.
And if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to reach out our way. But yeah, it's nice seeing everybody.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. All right. So after that,
I think it's me.
It's you, Patty.
Oh, okay, so we're gonna get to some more of that open discussion and a few other things, but I wanted to take a minute because I work for many people in self-direction as their nurse, and all along we have been doing infection control planning and COVID planning, and for the last 8, almost 9 months, pretty much everybody and many people in self-direction have been able to keep COVID out of their homes. And we're seeing that that's not the case right now, that more and more people are having someone COVID positive, either in the home or coming to work in the home, or somehow there's exposure. Not because people are doing anything wrong, just because there's more virus. And so everybody's continuing to do all of the precautions that they've been doing. So I know this has come up in many of you of my customers are actually on this call. And we've had these private conversations. I just wanted to address all of you in the very difficult conversation of planning for the worst case scenario. And the time to do that is now. Should you reach the point where there is no one to care for your loved one because you're ill or everyone in your household is, just, encouraging you to work with your team, work with your family, come out with a plan now before you get to that place. There is no grand plan on DDA's part or anybody else's how to come in and fix that situation. So it's very difficult and it's scary as hell, but plan it now. So I did bring this up to Bernie and Patricia the other day on a call, And what Patricia said to us specifically was, if you feel you are in one of those vulnerable situations, and that could be something like you are the only caregiver, staff are not working right now, and you have no natural supports, be in touch with your CCS, be in touch directly with your regional office. Let them know how tenuous your situation is. Let them know that you are the only caregiver. And should you become ill, you're going to need help, because there isn't already a plan of how to help you. Okay? And so go ahead and have those conversations, those difficult conversations now, and let your region know and many people have natural supports, or they have a trusted staff member that in the worst case scenario will come and be staff, so that if you would become the primary caregivers become so ill they can't provide care. So I'm just encouraging you, because I care about you and I care about my customers, to have those difficult conversations in your homes right now in case we get there. And just to understand that this is unprecedented. So there isn't a system in place to fix this. You can't make a phone call and say, I'm sick, can somebody come take care of my child? It doesn't exist. So, be in contact, get a plan. Most of you all know I was a parent as well. We all are scared to death of these types of situations. But if you have a plan, at least you'll have some comfort in knowing that there's a plan of action. I also would encourage you, and what I'm doing with my customers is I am part of your team. If you go down, I'm here. So if your individual has to live somewhere else for a few weeks, I'm the continuity. I know their life. So do that with if you have a nurse on your team, or a family member, or somebody that's in your circle, have that person be up on the knowledge of what the health and care needs are for your loved one, so that they can be the voice should you go down with this sickness and not be able to care for your loved one. So we are all in this together. So that's all I really wanted to say to you. And I know it's hard and it's scary and there's tears when we talk about these things, but just know we got to plan for it now and hope it absolutely never comes to pass.
Right. Thank you, Patty. Natoya and Jana, do you want to tell us anything about what is at the regional offices regarding PPE or other resources people might have?
For what DDA, we do have a form, and I will put that in the chat box as well, so that everyone can have access to that link, and then I'll share it with the SDAN group. There is an opportunity to be able to request some PPE in the regions, and the regions are making deliveries. And on the actual application, it will ask, how do you prefer that the PPE be delivered to you? And then there's some additional resources as well. So I'll drop those items in the chat, as well as make sure that the SDAN leadership has it as well.
CRMO just posted, and I think I put it on the Facebook page, that they had a delivery of PPE, and there's a form there to fill out to get it. So I would encourage people who need it or think they will to do that. Somebody asked a question, and Kathy, somebody asked a question, Patty, I'm not sure, you might be the better person to answer. If a participant becomes ill and no one can accompany him or her to the hospital, we need a detailed plan. But I understood that Department of Disabilities had made sure that people who are in this situation do not have to go to the hospital alone. Is that correct?
I believe that is true, but that doesn't mean that when you're dealing with an individual hospital setting that they know it. True. The advocacy might be required at that point to make sure. And I venture to guess people that are on this call would break down the doors of that hospital to get in there with their loved one. But yes, they have worked, the Department of Disability has worked on that, and people with disabilities should be able to have a person with them in a hospital setting.
Okay, that was my understanding. And I think when it first came out, I think late spring, early summer, maybe, I think I printed it and put it with my son's stuff in case it were to come to pass. So maybe we'll try to find that and post it somewhere for people to have a copy, that if something happened, they would at least be able to show it to hospital administrators. And then again, Patty, this might be you. If someone is rated a 3 on their HRST, do we still need a nurse before getting the PCP approved and the Appendix K funds granted? So there's two kind of.
I can't speak to the Appendix K, but I can tell you the process in DDA currently with CCS does the initial HRST health risk screening tool for each customer. And if that HRST is a level 3 or above, doesn't matter where you are in your plan approval, that the HRST has to go in with any plan. So if there's an HRST level 3, an RN consultation is required. RN nursing consultation is one of the waiver services. Included in nursing consultation is HRST review. There is no such thing as a single service of an HRST being reviewed by a nurse. A nurse is bound by the waiver definition to provide the full nursing consultation service. It is not simply the HRST review, but I think what you were asking specifically is, do you have to have a nurse before the plan is approved? Well, yes, because they're not going to look at your plan with it if it's an HRST 3 or higher without the nursing review completed. So that is a conundrum because people don't have that nurse. So that's something you have to work out with your CCS and your region. But yes, your plan has to have the review by the nurse before it will be approved.
So this may be something Natoya can speak to now or get back to us about, because it is a conundrum for many people. If you can't get the plan approved to have the funding for the nurse, you can't get the nurse without an ability to pay them. So it's a little bit of a circle, and some people have gotten very much delayed in that issue. I don't know, Natoya, if you have an update for us now, or you need the time to do the research and get back.
Sure. Let me just have some additional time just to find out more about this particular matter, and then I will get back with you on this.
This is Patty again. I can tell you that how it has worked for many people, because I get these calls every day for HRST review, and I have to explain to everybody that it is part of nursing consultation. And people, if they have money existing in their current budget that they can move into a line item for nursing, then the nurse can be paid to do this service. If there's existing money that you can move around and create the nursing line item. But if there is not, there's no way for the nurse to be paid to do the service, which is backwards.
Is there a difference at this point in Appendix K? There's Appendix K. Here's a question. Is Appendix K, the access of Appendix K funds, dependent on the current plan being approved? So if somebody doesn't have a plan approved right now, which a large percentage of people do, are in that boat, can they still access the Appendix K? So
right. So this is Natoya. So initially we did indicate that we wanted to make sure that some people had plans that were approved. However, we had noticed that there are, a substantial amount of people who don't have plans approved. So again, if you happen to be one of these people who might fit into or have this scenario, then please do reach out and let us know. Yes, we want to be able to access Appendix K. However, right now it's showing that our plan isn't approved or it's underfunding. And then we will work with the region as well as the FMS to make sure that we, get to the other side of this.
Teresa, you were nodding. Are you experiencing that people do get access to those funds without an approved plan?
Yeah, and that was the case for a while where DDA wanted to push people to get that plan approved, but then the numbers kept going up as far as the number of people who didn't have approvals. And I think, Natoya, please correct me if I'm wrong, but DDA didn't want people to go unpaid or unable to access those funds just because there was a holdup in the process. So DDA granted us the authority to move forward with processing Appendix K without a current approved plan and budget on file. Yes. So we can accept and process that DDA COVID Form 5 or submittals for respite without an approved plan and budget on file. So yay.
Okay, good. That's great. All right, so are we ready to move forward from COVID-19? And
Yes, we are.
okay, all right. So and now we're getting to the update on the what's happening with the FMS contractor and the latest update that we got from DDA just yesterday, and what we've been doing in the last several months in that area. And this will be Meg updating us.
Hi. So as you all know, good quality fiscal management services are really essential for people who are self-directing. You know, you have to be able to bring employees on in a timely manner. You have to make sure your employees get paid in a timely manner. You have to make sure, you know, that plan approvals are processed in a timely manner. And in Maryland, we've always had choice of fiscal management services. We've always had access to 2 providers. So, and I'm giving the long story because there may be new people on this call who aren't familiar with what's going on. But so since 2017, DDA's made it clear that they wanted to bring in one fiscal management service to serve everyone. And we heard from our members that that is a concern. We gathered information from around the country about the issue. And since then, in order to advocate for our members, we've consistently advocated for choice in fiscal management services because it is so important to have a functioning plan. So in 2018, DDA did have a RFP, which stands for Request for Proposals, basically a contract, a competitive contract to select one vendor to provide fiscal management services for everyone in self-direction. So, you know, we went through channels, we learned as much as we could, we communicated our members' concerns, and in 2018, the governor stopped that RFP, that request for proposals. In 2019, that request for proposals came out again. It was almost identical to the one before. And many of you may remember attending the informal hearing in Annapolis on September 24th in 2019, a little over a year ago. The RFP did continue after that hearing. And the long and the short of it is there was finally a very long process. Finally, there was a selectee, and we continued to advocate through channels. And the good news we got yesterday from Deputy Director Simons is that RFP is now canceled, which is just thrilling to us. And we were so delighted that he called to tell us that. And we're really looking forward to working with DDA to develop a solution for fiscal management where there is choice and control of that service. So we're really excited about it. And, you know, it was just wonderful news to get yesterday. So we will continue to advocate for choice and control of fiscal management services for our members. That's pretty much my report.
We also heard from the survey, we got compliments on the fiscal management companies that we have. So kudos, ladies. And that a lot of people don't want to leave them. So we're hoping that we add to, not take away from the options that we have not as we move forward. So we are likely going to need your actions and your support on that, and we will, you know, watch for our action items coming up if we need a letter writing campaign or whatever. So thanks, Meg. Meg did a ton of work on that. So
All
right.
Carol, can I interrupt for a second?
Yep.
There's been a question about whether REM nurses or nurses through CFC need to have a HRST review. Patty, can you help us with that?
Sure. Many people have services from different funding sources, right? DDA, REM medical assistance, or community first choice. each of those systems have some RN involvement, but the only RN involvement related to the HRST is from a DDA approved nurse. So REM nurses do not do the HRST. CFC nurse monitors do not do the HRST. So if you have an individual has an HRST level of 3 or higher, they still will need a registered nurse that is an approved DDA nurse, such as your delegating nurse or somebody like me, to do their nursing review for the HRST. But again, there is no standalone service for HRST review. There's not a nurse in this state that can just say, sure, I'll do a HRST review and do nothing else. Because the waiver service, the definition in the waiver is nursing consultation, which includes a nursing assessment, a self-administration assessment, an HRST review, and development of healthcare protocols. So there's a whole package that a nurse is responsible for. So if you have a REM nurse or a CFC nurse, they cannot do that. They're not in that pipeline. They work for a different program. They don't work within DDA. So you would need to contract with a nurse simply to provide that service. That could be a couple hours a year, but it's still not just an HRST review. You may not need the nurse really, but you need the nurse to complete the HRST review.
And just to make sure people understand that it is true that if you have an HRST of 3 or above, before your new plan is approved, you must get a nurse consultation, somebody to review that HRST, correct? Patty?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And then I'm going to just answer, there's been a lot of questions about EVV and the process for self-directed individuals. Because if DDA had linked EVV to the new FMS, and we've just learned that there isn't going to be a new FMS right now. So DDA has decided not to implement EVV for self-direction. People who are in providers have already started that process, but for self-direction, as of right now, there is no date certain or plan given for EVV for self-direction. EVV, or electronic visit verification, would only be applicable to the personal support service. So I hope that's clear. But so right now, EVV for self-direction is not a thing. Expect it to become one at some point in the future, but no date certain at this point.
The one thing I would like to say about the nurse consultation is sometimes you do have to absorb that cost in the current plan year, but some people in the survey indicated they were trying to absorb the full cost in the next plan year. And since it's a DDA requirement, Victoria, correct me if I'm wrong, you should request a plan amendment to add it and have those funds added to your plan, not try to absorb those. Is that right? She's
That's
shaking
correct.
her head. Okay, great. Okay, so anything else on the FMS? I think it's good news. I'm really happy. We love working with you guys, and we had an example of someone who needed a employment verification in like one day, and they did it, and we can call you on the phone and talk to you directly, and we were really worried that wasn't going to be the case with this national provider. So we can breathe a little bit of a relief right now. And so in that vein, the last thing on our agenda is kind of how we're hoping to try to fix this, which is last year, some of you may know, we had a self-direction act that got to hearings in both the Senate and the House, and then they shut down. So it never made it out of the committee hearings. This year, we are ahead of the game. It's already been pre-filed, and it should be coming out soon. We don't have a bill number now, but what we're going to need is, we're hoping that that's going to fix it. It will establish an advisory council that will help to get our waiver back to some of the flexibilities that we had when it was New Directions. If any of you remember what it used to be, we would like to see that some of those things come back. We want those flexibilities back. We are trying to protect family being able to work as staff. We are trying to restore some of the duties of the support broker, make it clear the support broker is working as a fiduciary for the participant and in the participant's best interest, so that they're not seen as the conflict of interest is not there, or the ability to some of the things that DDA is saying about conflict of interest are clearer if there's a fiduciary duty, just like a real estate agent or a lawyer. We will share that bill as soon as it comes out. If I'm forgetting anything, let me know. I can talk. We're trying to. I'm forgetting, sorry. There was going to say something about the MSFPR, but I don't think that has anything to do with it. We just want the flexibility, the ability to continue to move money around. There's some question about whether we're going away from that, and some question about having an annual plan versus a weekly plan or a daily plan, because that cost detailed tool breaks everything down by month, and some of the or not the cost detail tool, but the detailed service authorization. So we don't want to be treated in the same way that providers are, and they don't want to be treated this way either, where if they've used up their allocation for the month, they're not able to be paid, or when they bill, like, they get an error code. So we're trying to keep flexibility and annualization in the self-directed plan. And so with that, we have Carmen and Sunny, who have done their the document that we want you all to do again. A lot of you probably did the Your Story document or the About Me document that we had last year, and now I have to try to pull this up, so hold on. See if I don't, oh yeah, there it is, yay. So now I have to share my screen somehow.
This is Sunny. I'm sorry, I can't type in the chat, but I just want to let you know that I did ask a couple of questions in the chat, so if somebody could answer those. I was waiting. Well, my support person actually typed a couple of questions. I got an answer to the first one, but I did not get an answer to the second one she asked yet. So if somebody could answer the second question that I asked.
Honey, if you want to repeat your question right now, that would be, we can try to answer it. But what's your second question? Or when you think.
Oh, Krista, I was muted. Sorry. Krista was the one. Krista, what was the question you wrote? The second question you wrote?
So I was confused. I was confused about the Appendix K. I don't know if you can hear me because the voice is going and it usually mutes. Okay. I don't know. In the Appendix K, it said something about like if the participant has COVID, the employees would get 150% increase.
No, that is not, oh, if the participant has COVID? Is that what
yes. Come closer to the iPad. I don't think they can hear you very well.
Why don't we, we'll try to answer the question back in the chat box, or, but let's kind of move on with this. I understand your question now, and I will get you an answer.
Did you hear it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? VoiceOver is reading every single message that comes in the chat. So did you hear Krista's question?
We did, and we'll respond in the chat box as soon as I can.
Okay.
Okay, so Sunny, and this is the form that some of you filled out last year. I'm going to show it to you now. It was also in the PowerPoint that I sent to everybody this morning. I'm not 100% sure that this form works real well, but we will be having another meeting in January where we do this more extensively, and Andy Culp is going to do a workshop for us on this. So I'm going to go ahead and let Sunny, you can, is Sunny and Carmen there? There's Carmen, there's Sunny. Okay, so Carmen, do you want to go ahead and share yours since you're sitting right there? And
Sure. So here's hers with all of her pretty pictures of her. Let's see if I can show you snowboarding and her fashion and her being Wonder Woman at the Special Olympics World Games where she won a gold medal.
In Abu Dhabi.
In Abu Dhabi, yep. And there's her being a ventriloquist. So hopefully you can see the pictures. So that when she talks about it, you'll get an idea of what she's talking about.
Hi, my name is Carmen Hitalalum, and I have self-directed my services for a year. I work at Mod Pizza, where I make pizza crust with the dough press, make pizzas for our customers, and help keep the store and the dishes clean. I love my job, and my coworkers are really nice to me and make me feel part of the team. In my spare time, I practice my ventriloquism, and I hope to be on America's Got Talent someday. I really like British things, and I am saving up my money from my paycheck to take a trip to London as soon as I can travel again after the pandemic. I am very active, and I swim, snowboard, dance, and cheer. I also like to make reels on Instagram with funny songs and also other songs too. I really like fashion, and I post pictures of myself wearing outfits similar to a British model named Holly Willoughby. Self-direction is important to me because I like to decide what I am going to do with my time instead of having to do with someone else tells me. I have a lot of interests, and I like having someone close to my age to share them with and hang out with, like my aid angel. I am proud that I can make my own decisions.
That's awesome.
okay, so is that there's a section on this and on the one that we're going to send to you that says my concerns for self-direction are. Did you have any concerns for self-direction, Carmen or Ginger?
Well, we didn't, we used the wrong form. So we just had the general my story.
Okay.
You know, honestly, the big concern is that some of these marvelous freedoms that she has will get taken away either, you know, because we're trying to be forced to be more like providers, or just sort of by accident, by, you know, language in some of these rules that have these unintended consequences where, for example, parents can't be staff. You know, during this whole year, if I wasn't allowed to be Carmen's staff person, she would not have had any services because people were locked in their houses.
Okay,
So.
thank you. Sunny, I have yours. I think I had Carmen's too, but I didn't, I'm having trouble again being the host and sharing screens, so give me a second here, guys.
Am I muted?
You are muted. And then do you want to?
Hi, so I did send you my story.
Yep, your story should be on the screen now. Is it, everybody? Okay. Yes. All right. So your screen's on the. I mean, your story's on the screen. Go ahead. I can see it.
So I'm Sunny. You probably see I'm holding a LaCroix sparkling water in my hand that I bought from the store yesterday. So I was placed in a shelter workshop for 8 years before self-direction changed my life. For those of you who are not familiar with what a shelter workshop is, I specifically did not put in my story what a shelter workshop because I assumed that most of you would know what it is. But basically, a shelter workshop is a place where people with disabilities go and they get paid sub-minimum wage. My experience in the shelter workshop was that most days I would just be sitting around, not doing much of anything. The last paycheck I got the last day of my shelter workshop, which was in March 2015, I got $2 and some change for 2 weeks worth of work. So thanks to the my co-founder of the musical artist, CJ Shiloh, CJ got me into self-direction, which was called New Directions. And CJ is my support broker. She's not here with me right now because I live in Annapolis and she lives in Pasadena. And she's a music therapist and she has her own life to live. She has a almost 4-year-old daughter. She's going to be 4 on Sunday.
So they want to know how is it important to you?
So self-direction is important because unlike the sheltered workshop, I hired my own staff. I set my own goals. The shelter workshop basically told me the goals that I had to set. I was unable to make my own decisions. I get to, the shelter, self-direction is flexible. I decide where to go, what to do. I decide my own plan. Nobody else decides it for me. I decide it for myself. And I think self-direction is working very well. I have been in self-direction since 2016. It's going to be 5 years in January. I do have concerns about self-direction though, which is the second box. I have concerns that sometimes my plan does not get approved on time. And that's just something that naturally happens. I just kind of have to deal with some of the stuff that DDA does. Another concern I have is right now, hopefully 2021 is going to be a better year for us, but as of right now, with the surging cases of COVID, it's very challenging for me to find things to do during the day when I'm not doing schoolwork. And by the way, just to preface that, I am a college student now looking to get my certificate in entrepreneurship, at least by 2022, because I'd like to start my own business being a paid performer and a paid public speaker. I would like to perform music for the elderly and do public speaking events talking about disability awareness. So one of the concerns I have is because of COVID, COVID is a factor and it's very challenging to find spaces to work because not a lot of my support people feel comfortable with me working outside of their homes, inside their homes. That's what I used to do. Another concern I have is I may not always have the support that I need to get schoolwork done if one of my staff members fell ill with COVID. So those are just a few concerns that I have. I think COVID is the main concern because, before COVID, I used to go for walks in the mall. I go for walks in the mall now, but I wear a mask, which is something I can deal with. But you can't do really fun stuff. It's really hard to go to the Smithsonian or go to the Spy Museum or go out to a restaurant for a nice meal on your birthday. My birthday's coming up, January 4th. And yeah, so COVID is definitely a challenge for people in self-direction, especially if everything is closed and you can't find, you can't do everything you want to do. In fact, I'm going to see after this meeting, the Anne Arundel County Executive did make an announcement at 12 o'clock noon today about our new restrictions that he's going to put on the county, but I will look at that announcement after this meeting. All right, I'm done.
Thank you, Sunny. So
you can put the iPad down.
So you get the gist of what we're asking for on that form. We have forms from people last year. we have been asked by the Applied Self-Direction National Advocacy Group to share some of those stories. And so I'll maybe reaching out to people who did it last year for permission to send it. But if you send in news stories, you can give it, you can give that to us permission too. Now I need to share my screen again. Hold on.
So we're hoping that you and participants will share their stories in this kind of format, which we will make available to you. I think we have a tweak or two to do, but we will send out to everybody, and we'd love for you to be thinking about it. We intend to have a workshop to help people who want it fill it out in early January. Our bill comes out and we don't know exactly when. Oh, there you go. Wow. When when the bill will hit the committees, and we want to have everything ready to go at the drop of a hat whenever our bill comes to the front.
And what everybody needs to know is that because of COVID, the testifying will be completely different. We will not be in Annapolis. We will only be able to have 4 people testify. So this piece of paper will become participants' testimony. And we will be asking you to make appointments with your legislators, which are, as my understanding, they're doing virtual appointments of 5 minutes approximately, where we will be giving you some materials to introduce yourself to them. This document will be one of those things that you can use. Meg is also working on a video to explain it to them so that they can, in about 3 minutes, get the gist of what we're doing. So this is really the importance, because if we can get this bill passed and we can get this advisory council started, then maybe we can affect some real changes to DDA, and the bill itself will codify some of the things that we've been concerned about.
And if I can add on to what Carol is saying, this is Meg. What legislators really need to hear are your stories. That's what move, personal stories, told briefly and well, are what really move legislators. We can give them facts, and we can have Andy Culp, put in her, her point of view, and we can ask other advocacy organizations to do that. But what really moves legislators are stories from their constituents. It's the most powerful witness, and it will be the most powerful witness for our bill.
Okay, so and the last thing on our agenda is other actions. And one of the things that you may or may not know about is that at the bottom of every email that you get from a state employee is a link to a governor's customer service survey. And so we also, this was one of the documents that I sent out to everyone this morning, and that link was on top of the page. So if you don't have a letter from them and you want to complete the survey, you can go straight to the link, and it will give you a chance to tell DDA some of the things that you are telling us. You can be anonymous, or you can give your name and contact information. So we have been trying to make this part of what we remind you to do, and we haven't done a great job of that. So we made it part of today's meeting to make sure that you're aware that it's there. And then the last bit, go ahead, Alicia.
I just wanted to jump in, and so filling out these surveys gets your needs and your opinions known to a one group of people. But I'd like to encourage everybody on the call, if you haven't already filled out the SDAN survey, please go ahead and do it. Since we've been on the call, there's been one that came through. And we are going to compile them and share the appropriate portions of it with DDA, not just Natoya, but with Mr. Simons as well. So it is totally anonymous. Nobody's name is going in there, and no way for them to recognize who it is. So please be honest. But the more we hear from you, the better we are able to, support and advocate for the things that participants really need. Sorry to interrupt, Carol.
Oh, that's all right. And we do want to encourage you, if you have positive things to say them. I mean, we do try to give DDA positive feedback as well. It just seems like a lot of it are issues and concerns, but there are things that are going right. Appendix K and all of the flexibility with that is one of them. So we're thankful for that. All right, so then the very last thing, oh no, we forgot about this. Not the very last thing. We need help. There are a handful of people doing a lot of stuff, but there's a lot more that needs to be done, and we just can't take on any new projects. So we're kind of putting it out there. What's your talent and how can you help us? Our mission is to promote participant choice and control of services. We want participants to be in the boss. And we had newsletters in the past. We could use some help to reinstitute that. We have had individuals help us by starting flow charts on the process of getting a plan approved. We kind of need somebody to take it to the next step and put it in a chart and with arrows and if not this, that, somebody that has that talent. We've also had someone send us a list of activities. We can share that. You can add to that. We do have a membership committee lead, and that's Melissa Lopez, and she's talked a couple times, and she is trying to maintain a mailing list between two mailing lists we belong to, and we need to kind of get it all into one. People have testified at hearings in the past. This year, the way you're going to do that is to give us your stories. And then, so what we need is what's on the right side, but also any other ideas that you have, anything that's special that any talent specialty that you have, please help. Fundraising is great. We are really trying to find a person to be kind of the lead paid employee on this, but we can't really do that with all of our other commitments, but we need money to pay that person. So donations would be great, but also for that, but even smaller ones, any things. If you've got fundraising ideas, help us out with that. So ladies, anything else we need to add? Appeals?
Actually, donations of time and money would be awesome. And you feel free to contact any one of us with ideas. We're very open to it. There was one question I think that was on our list that we didn't really address at all. And there's a question about it. Any update to supported living is the question. And
oh yeah, we kind of flipped over that when we were doing the survey. Sorry about that. Okay. We need you to contact us. We honestly need real data directly from people as this is happening to you. So if you are being affected by the new definition of personal supports that essentially eliminates the ability to have that overnight, or if you are receiving it overnight, how did you do that? We need help to figure out how to get that through. If you've been capped on personal support and told to go to supported living and you don't think that's the best option or helpful in any way, the update is that's the direction that it's going. And that is not something that we agree with, and it's not something that we're going to stop addressing with DDA. And DDA is on the call, so we're not trying to hide it from them. It's not person-centered. It introduces an agency where one is not really necessary. And the biggest thing to me as a state tax holder is it costs a ton more money. And it just doesn't make sense to pay more for something than you need to. That is also less person-centered and takes away the person's control. You have to, as a self-directed participant, hire the the supported living provider as a vendor. So you don't have the ability to hire your employees anymore. But I am working with one person who has found a vendor who's willing to hire their current employees. However, their current employees are going to take a pay cut, and it's going to cost the state $100,000 or more. And it doesn't make sense.
I think what Carol's saying is that, you know, we have 1 or 2 stories. It would be great if we had, you know, a handful more of stories to go straight to the, you know, to the top, to explain that self-direction can do this in a more effective and efficient manner, and provide better, essentially better service for a participant for less money. And there needs to be a, you know, a change, because people are vulnerable when they're sleeping. You want to hire the people you want to help you then overnight.
So the role that people are referring to is is overnight supports, correct? That now you have to use supported living for overnight supports?
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be what's happening. However, there are some people that have overnight supports paid under personal supports. So we need people to kind of put aside any fear of retribution, and to be willing to really share with us what's going on. And we may or may not have to use your name, but we are often asked, well, give us a specific example, and it's hard.
We would never use somebody's name without their express permission. So please don't feel like that's a thing. I just want to be clear, in any circumstance, we wouldn't share a person's name without.
But we also need to hear the stories, and so even if they're anonymous, if we can relay them and say that is, we've been asked to not share who that is. It's a big deal. It's a big issue, and we just need to know how many of you have been affected by that, and that will kind of be one of the pulling out questions that we're going to ask on our next survey, that when we realize we didn't really get exactly what we were trying to with some of our questions. So I'm sorry for skipping that.
I have a question. I was wondering, how can our individual stories be told to the individual delegates and senators that are like presented in our mailing list?
Okay, well, it's what we're asking, Melissa, is that every participant reach out to their individual legislator and share their story, because that's what Meg was saying. Personal stories matter, and your concerns to them matter. The delegates and senators that we're going to need to hit and right off the bat are those on the committees, but eventually everyone's going to have to vote on this bill, and if we get it out of committee. And we just need to make those personal connections to educate people about what self-direction is and how important it is to the people that are in it. So that's what our so now I can go to the last one. That's what our January 7th, it's not a meeting, it's a workshop. It's going to actually be breakout groups that you will need to tell us what your Maryland election district is to register. So that is one of the documents I think I sent out too. If I didn't, we will send it back out in the sign up. It's easy to go to marylandelect.gov, I think, or yeah, I'm not sure what the last thing is, marylandelect.gov.net, I'm not sure, and put in your address.
You can Google find my state legislators.
It's also on the Maryland General Assembly website. There's a link there. So you put in your address, and you it'll tell you exactly what election district you're in and who your representatives are in the state. These are state people that we're going to go to. So please put this on your calendar. We will be sending it out, notice out soon. We'll ask the ARC to do it again as well, and the MedSource. We will, somebody suggested CCS is involved. We have been talking to CCS as well. We invited them late to it so that no one from the group could come, but we will try to have CCSs in future meetings as well. And hopefully we'll be working with CCS organizations to try to help get the self-direction process a little cleaner than it's been for a while. So that's the end of the meeting.
How do you want to wrap us up?
Sure. I was just typing private messages back and forth.
That's
I'm
good.
just encouraging you all to be in touch with each other, you know, contact us. We really are the conduit for your feedback to DDA. Please utilize us. And often in our meetings with DDA, they say to us, well, how many people is that affecting? And we need to be able to say, well, you know, we've heard from 32 members, or we've heard from, again, your privacy is really important to us. And I'm always, being the nurse, I'm always the one saying confidentiality, confidentiality. You know, we do not divulge who you are or what anything about you, but we need to be able to convey your stories. So stay well, make your plans, and stay in touch. And we'll be back together again in early January to really get set on our advocacy for this bill. And if there's questions, this is the last chance to ask and put them in the chat box.
There's only one other one I see. Somebody wanted the number of self-directing participants by county or by district, and I don't think we have that quite yet.
We have it by county, Paulette.
For the people who are SDAN members, but not for all.
No, we did a Public Information Act request. We just got that data in the last day or so. So it will be part of our legislative packet. We're doing Ginger's doing some numbers, some work with the numbers of budgets. In general, self-direction has always been substantially less money for the people with higher needs anyway than the traditional programs. We would like to see it stay that way. We want people to have what they need, but we don't want budgets to go through the roof either. So, because that's really one of the benefits of self-direction. You get a more for less. So. All right, are we done?
We are done. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
And have a great afternoon. Happy holidays.